Welcome. You're watching Rugby with Rifle, a podcast about all things rugby and life, with your host, Danny Pabone and Rifle Scudder.
Hello, tribe, and welcome to another episode of Rugby with Rifle. We're very excited to be here. This is technically episode number 6, but really episode number 5. As we had mentioned before, we were live at the Edgewater Education Summit, and we had recorded an episode with two wonderful guests, Kevin Smith and Earl Davis, who are owners of a developing rugby league here in America by the name of the National Rugby Football League. Unfortunately, since I am a novice at podcast, we had video but no sound. So that was very unfortunate, but I know me and Rifle were chuckling about that. So next time we have to do a sound check. Lesson learned, right, Rifle?
You didn't know.
So this episode is going to be another great episode because we are going to be talking about a series by the name of Chasing the Sun. So it's a pretty cool series. But before we start diving into the series, Rifle, welcome back, my friend. How are you?
I'm doing well. Thank you so much. Wonderful to be with everyone again. And the podcast we had at the summit was wonderful. And the people that were live, that were there, I know they enjoyed it. A lot of people came and said they knew nothing about rugby. And after that, they really enjoyed what we did. So even though there wasn't sound, the people that were there had a spectacular time. So it was good. It ended well. It was good.
Yes, I agree. I agree. I also had a few members, attendees come up to me and say that they enjoyed it. And so it was pretty cool.
It
Pretty
was.
cool to experience.
Yeah. So yeah, Danny, after we did, because our first couple of podcasts was just basic rugby 101, how many people in a team, how do you score a point, what is the objective and the aim of the game. So when we did all of that, Danny said, well, what can we do further? So he said, I introduced him to this documentary, which is called, as Danny had said, Chasing the Sun. This is number 2. So I helped Danny set it up and how to get it so that he could watch it. And after doing that, he said, well, why don't we do the next episode of Rifle and Rugby? Why don't we do that on this Chasing the Sun? So I said, I'd love to do it. Obviously, I am, born and raised in South Africa. So, I'm very biased towards the Springbok rugby team. So, but even just watching this just brought back so many memories, and I sit and watch it over and over again. So, yeah, I would love to talk about it. It shows a lot about South Africa, where I grew up, or we grew up, and the struggles we came from in South Africa, but just how valuable rugby itself is to each and everyone in South Africa. But not just that, for a rugby public and for us as a group of Edgewater to be able to see the game of rugby. So many countries and nations play. The National Rugby Football League, like you were saying, Danny, is now available to us to get involved in. So people want to learn more about rugby. So in this documentary, there's a lot of rugby knowledge that even if you have spoken to a person and there are 15 people on a field, in each team, and you've got to score a try, you don't know the intricacies, you don't know the planning behind a game, and why do you pick certain players, and why do you leave certain players out, and all of these little fine details in rugby make such a big difference. So it's wonderful to know these things, and in this documentary, you see absolutely everything. So there are a lot of rugby documentaries. I remember a while ago, I put up a documentary which they did on the Six Nations, which is the Northern Hemisphere. And in February every year, they have the Six Nations, and they made a documentary on that. It was good, But as I say, once again, and it's not just me saying this, if you go listen to every podcast who watched and every professional player who watched this series, this is the number one documentary on rugby, hands down. Nothing comes close to it. And I'm not just saying that because I'm South African. It is people, I mean, they let you into the bathrooms here. They show people's lives. They go into the coach's head, literally, when they got to pick players and how do you do that? And it's just phenomenal. So I was shocked when you watch this, the freedom that Rassie and the South Africans gave the camera crew. You can go anything goes. So once again, fair warning from the start, the language is atrocious. The language is shocking. That's the only bad thing about this documentary is the language. So if you can't handle swearing, do not even watch episode 1. Don't do it. You'll just damage yourself. But it just shows you the way that Rassie, the South African coach, gets to speak to his players, how he motivates them, how he gets through to them, and how he can do that as their coach, and they don't get angry and walk away. So it just allows you to see behind the scenes where no camera is allowed or nobody really talks about. So it's very exciting to see this, and just it opens up the game of rugby to us all, because in here you see them playing against different teams and how good the different teams are and what their specialities are, but it's all rugby. So as a rugby lover, it's phenomenal.
Yes, I agree. And the beautiful thing about this documentary and this series is you had mentioned just now that it's, according to professional rugby players and many rugby podcasts, that this is one of the best documentaries on rugby that has been produced. And I've watched many documentaries from different sports, different teams, different players from various sports. And I have to agree that this, even though I haven't been following rugby for as long as you have, obviously, this series documentary is very, very well produced and filmed. So I would have to agree with the limited experience I've had with rugby over the past year or two. I've watched many sport documentaries. So in that aspect, I agree with you and the podcasters and professionals that this series is very, very entertaining, well produced and filmed. You get that immediately as soon as you watch it.
It's episode 1, the beginning just grabs your attention. You're either going to think, what in the world is this? Why is he saying that? How can you speak to other people that way? And then you realize where and what. But how this thing came about, I mean, is the name Chasing the Sun is when President Nelson Mandela came out of prison, and he made one of the first speeches he ever made. In that speech, almost like the I Have a Dream from Martin Luther, he said, Nelson Mandela said, I'm a product of Africa. And he said, one day I want all of our children to play together under the sun. That was his quote in that. I want our kids to play under the sun. And that's where this documentary gets its name from. It's Chasing the Sun. Because we in South Africa with apartheid and all of that, that dream, that vision that Madiba had for all kids to under the sun play together is we are chasing that dream. And we are under the sun. We want to get there. We're striving towards that. We're doing what we can. We've made so many mistakes as a nation, as a country, but we're trying to fix it now. But all of us have to do it together. But that's the name, Chasing the Sun, is where it comes from. It's from President Mandela saying, may our kids all play under the sun. So that's something just extra, just to throw in there.
That's amazing. That is truly amazing, knowing the history of how they came up with the name of the documentary.
Yeah, and me just looking at that picture,
Yeah. Oh,
Me as a white South African growing up in apartheid, to see a black man holding the William Webb Ellis, and then to hear if someone would say that black guy is actually the Springbok rugby captain. I mean, when I grew up, that was it. It's impossible. It can't be. It just, the way things were. It can't change. And look where we are now, and look what we have done. And there's Siya Kolisi, holding the cup as, man, South Africa's superhero. There are white people. I've got a jersey with his name on. There's a white South African guy who grew up in apartheid who has a black man's jersey with his name on the back. How does that even happen within not even a biblical, generation? I left South Africa in 95, first democratic election. So 30 years, things have changed where black people couldn't even play rugby, where they hated rugby because it was the white symbol of being white. And we had rugby and it was our game, where now all the whites have a rugby jersey with Sia's name on it, and they all just love him. And, it's just phenomenal. And this is Chasing the Sun 2 we're talking about here, but there is a Chasing the Sun, the original one. And if you go back to that one, they show you how Sia became captain and all the turmoil that was in South Africa years ago with the rugby and all of that. And as I say, to sit and watch the end product of Chasing the Sun 2 with South Africa's Siya Kolisi lifting the cup for the second time in a row, it's a miracle. It's an absolute dream come true. It's phenomenal. So I love it. I sit and watch it. My son sits and watch it. We sit and watch it. I mean, as I say, swearing is bad, but just cry every single time from thinking where we came from and where we are now. And it's just beautiful to be able to share this rugby dream of South Africa with the rest of the world and the tribe.
wow. Wow. You've left me speechless right now. What a great story. What a great lesson, I guess you can say, is that. And I just love that through what you just said is, we are all human. Doesn't matter what color you are, what
Right.
creed, what race, what
Mm.
nationality.
Yeah.
We all want to love. We all want to be loved.
Yep.
We all want to do the best for ourselves, and we want to do the best for our loved ones.
Mm.
And that's just human nature. So it's amazing, what your life experience
Mm.
through the whole South African apartheid. It's just an amazing story,
Mm.
and yeah, it's just an amazing story.
Yeah, I'm a blessed man. I know it. I've seen so much change, and as I say, things that were just absolutely impossible and couldn't happen, have happened, and not even in 50 or 100 years, in 30. So to look back now and sit back and just see this dream come true, and just it's amazing. It's wonderful. So it's really intriguing to have that hope now, not just in rugby, but in other areas of life. But
Yeah.
people often say, why do you like rugby so much? This is one of the reasons, is because I've seen what rugby, the game itself, has done for a nation. This is literally, I've spoken to you about this, where we have a saying in South Africa, in Afrikaans, we say, hulle weet nie wat ons weet nie, which means they don't know what we know.
Mm.
And in this, you will time and time again, you will hear people from the newspapers and people from television stations, and they will ask Siya Kolisi, like, how did you do it? You shouldn't have won that game. You should have lost. You guys were against the ropes, but you came back. And he says, if you're not South African, you will not understand. Because it's one thing to talk about it. It's one thing to try and explain. I try and tell people, how do you explain the color red to a blind person? Try that. Try and explaining different colors to blind people. That's what it's like growing up in South Africa the way it was. and the progress that we've made, still not perfect. It's still bad. It's still very bad. But rugby has made such a difference. And I've lived that. And rugby saved our white asses in South Africa when President Mandela came out of prison. Because you had 6 million whites, and you had 42 million blacks. You can't control 42 million blacks by 6 million whites, but that's what was happening. So if he came out and he said, okay, that's it, we're going to take over, and that's, you've punished us for so many years, we taking over, we were dead the same day. But rugby was the thing that united us, where he came out and he said, there's been enough bloodshed, we've seen enough war, that's it, now we're going to be the rainbow nation. Every creed, every race, every color, everything that we have in South Africa, 11 official languages, we're going to come together. But what could bring us together? There was only one thing, and that is the beautiful, magnificent, splendid game of rugby that brought us together, that we are watching today, and grown men crying their eyes out when they win or lose, or the joy or the heartache of the game. It's just beautiful. But that's rugby. But if you weren't there, like we say, if you're not South African, you won't understand. And it's rugby that did it for us. And that's why I'm so in love with the game. And that's why I want to just let as many people as will listen just talk a little bit about rugby. And it's not about rugby, it's about life. It's about treating other people the way you want it to be treated, and helping other people as much as you can. But in South Africa, the vehicle to be able to do that, the vehicle to lift up people out of poverty, to go to areas where there's no running water, there's no toilet, they live in shacks, to lift those people up and help, that was through rugby. And the game itself made such a huge difference. And then, because the game is always bigger than the person, you have individuals that rise up to the moment where the game allows them to make a difference, and they grab onto that chance, like our coach Rassie Erasmus. He grabbed onto being this brilliant rugby mind, but not just for himself. He went into the townships, and he went and he got Siya Kolisi, who didn't have food, who was living off of sugar water at night for his supper. And he went and he saw the talent in him, and he picked him out. And he has now won 2 Rugby World Cups. And he, as I said before, is South Africa's superhero. So people came around the game and they merged. And today you have Chasing the Sun 2, this miracle, because all of that has taken place. Man, I'll talk so much. I'm talking too much. Let's go to the program. Sure. I'm sorry.
No, don't be sorry. This is amazing. I mean, Tribe, this was not part of the program. So
not at all.
Watching here is inspired, and I'm loving it. I'm truly loving it. And just to touch upon what you just so eloquently spoke about. Wow, amazing. It's like Mandela had the wisdom of Solomon at that moment, because it's like you said, Mandela could have came out and say, hey, we're going to take over the whites, we're going to destroy them because they haven't been good to us. No, but he chose another route.
Right.
He chose a route of unity.
Yep.
And not revenge.
Yep.
So that in itself is a beautiful story, an amazing story.
Yeah, it is.
So wow. Wow, thank you for that. Rifle. That was amazing. All right, guys, so let's get back to our regular program. And again, you don't need to apologize, Rifle. That was amazing. That is amazing.
I'll just, even before we start, going back to President Mandela in 1995, because the first Rugby World Cup was in 1987. Then they had the next one. In the first 2 World Cups, South Africa didn't even participate. We were not allowed because of sanctions. So we were not even allowed to play in the World Cup in the first 2. So in 1995 was South Africa's first Rugby World Cup, we were allowed because of democracy had now been birthed in South Africa. And President Mandela was the president of the nation at that stage. So we could play in 1995 and we won. So out of all of the Rugby World Cups, we are 2 behind because we weren't even allowed to play in those. But, talking about Sia, in 1995, if you go and, you can go on YouTube at the final. It was New Zealand, the All Blacks against the Springboks at Ellis Park in South Africa. It doesn't get bigger than that. And when President Mandela came out, and you can listen, you can hear some of the All Blacks, they will tell you, when President Mandela, Nelson Mandela, who was in prison for 27 years, when he came out in a South African rugby jersey with a number 6 on, because our captain, Francois Pinault, he was number 6, and a Springbok rugby cap, when he walked out to shake hands with all the New Zealanders and all the South Africans, the New Zealanders said, when Nelson Mandela walked out of the tunnel with us, this black man who has been oppressed by the whites wore a white man's jersey. And the crowd went absolutely bananas. New Zealand standing there, the players to this very day said, we knew it's over. There's not a chance. These guys are so motivated. You got the whole of South Africa, 80,000 people in the stands, wanting to see their country do well. And it was just because, like you say, he chose the higher path. He chose a different way. He came out with a Springbok jersey, and Springbok, the symbol, the emblem of the Springbok was always for the whites. It was our game. It was a white game. Black people couldn't play it. This was our thing. And he wore that jersey. And man, I'm telling you, it was just, and you can go and Google that and watch the final where he takes the cup in that jersey. That was the rebirth of South Africa. That was the start of that picture behind you today.
Wow.
Yeah. Back to the program.
Like, I'm going to throw the program out the window. But no, seriously. So what we decided to do in this episode is just show you where you could create a free account. They don't ask for your credit card. They don't ask for anything. And once you create this free account, you're able to watch the series Chasing the Sun too. So what I'm going to do really quickly is share my screen here. Okay. So here we go. So if you go to rugbypass.tv, again, rugbypass.tv, you get to the homepage, and then the upper, I'm signed in, so you're not seeing this right now. But if you go to rugbypass.tv, in the upper right corner, it's going to say create an account. And you just click on create account. Again, they just ask for your email. I believe just email, correct, Rifle?
It's name and email. That's all they want. They just need, that's all, because they send stuff through, email to you of new podcasts, new things that come up. So name and email, that's it.
Okay. So you just provide your name, email, create an account, and then you have access to this Chasing the Sun series. And there's other things within the website that I've checked out that are pretty cool. So definitely create a free account, and just search through the website. It's a lot of cool things. I promise you won't regret it.
Actually, what you see now there at the bottom, the very left, you can see the United States flag there.
Yeah,
they're busy playing right now. This is the Rugby World Cup for women.
Oh, yes. Mm-hmm.
So this is happening currently as we speak. So United States are playing Ireland right now. So as I said, as Danny said, the site has got a lot of good interviews. They've got people that do podcasts, and then their old games, so you can go back and watch highlights. They speak to a lot of the players. It's a site that has a lot of rugby knowledge, people that know a lot about the game, that have played the game at the highest level, and giving their 2 cents and their wisdom of the game. But Currently, the Women's World Cup is happening, so that's on there right now as well.
Yeah, that's pretty cool. Yeah, pretty cool, pretty cool. So what I wanted to do really quick is I'm just gonna click on watch now here. Oh, missed it. There we go. So what I wanted to do really quick is just play the trailer during the recording. It's only a minute 28. So let me just do that really quick. Oh, okay. Can you hear that, Rifle?
The sound came through. Yes, it did.
Okay. So fair warning again.
Yeah.
Language. But I just
Yes.
wanted to show everybody the trailer to motivate them to create an account and watch the series. So I'm just gonna play the trailer right now.
Those are the rule we never understand. What it's like to be a South African.
The time has finally come, South Africa. This tour has been described as the toughest of this year's Rugby World Cup, and for good reason.
The energy that you have, the hunger that you have, the desire that you have, that you want someone else.
We know what to do anymore. That's lying to South Africa.
Even if you're down by how many points, the refusal to be defeated is not an option in this team.
Well, it's not really anything what they're going to do. That's why it doesn't work. Therefore, that's enough.
Sound has disappeared now. There's no more sound.
We actually get united behind one goal. We are very, very powerful.
Okay, I don't know about you guys, but if that doesn't make you want to watch the documentary, I don't know what will. What an amazing trailer that is. And again, very well produced, filmed. Wow. I don't know about you, Rifle. I saw Rifle's face. His face was lightened.
I can tell you word for word every episode, my friend. I love that. That's my go-to movie. That is the first one. That's the other thing. If you open the accounts on this, rugbypass.tv, you can go. They've got Chasing the Sun, the original one as well. So you can actually start at the first one, which was exactly the same what they did now, but it was a previous Rugby World Cup in Yokohama, Japan in 2019. So they've got the whole series about that. And then they've got the second one that was the previous World Cup last year in France.
Cool, cool. Wow, what an amazing trailer. So again, we had a little of a program change, which is perfectly fine because what we had planned and what just occurred over the past 20 minutes was, in my opinion, way better. I don't know about you, Rifle. It's just amazing. Thank you again for sharing your story and your experience with rugby. But one of the things that I want to ask you and that I found interesting, there was a few things, but because of time, I'll just keep it to the one that I found most interesting.
Okay.
And you will, if you watch the series, everybody, you'll understand why I'm asking this. So you have to watch the series. So one of the things that I found very interesting was in 2023, South Africa is coming out of winning the previous World Cup. And one of the things that the rugby commentators and broadcasters were saying was that South Africa was, essentially what they were saying was they're very predictable. They need to come up with a different strategy because they don't see South Africa winning again. And all these negative comments that I'm sure fired up the South African team. So I just wanted you to briefly explain uh, why those comments were made and how that helped motivate the South African team.
Sure. Different countries play different styles of rugby for the most part. If you look at New Zealand, they are known for their running. They got quick backline players. They're not the biggest guys on the field, but they're fast, they're nimble, they can run very well. Then if you go to the French, they've got flair. They do crazy things on the day where other countries and other teams will play more a conservative game. The France team the French are amazing. They do things like, how do you do that? So every team, every nation has a different way of playing. For us as Springboks, as South Africa, we have power. We have dominance, we have muscle, we have size. We like the physical. We want to tackle. We want to scrum. We want to kill. That's what we do. So we don't have in the back line the speed and agility that New Zealand or France does. We just got big guys and they just want to run absolutely straight through you. So if you have a New Zealander or French guy that's coming up to an opponent, they might step to the side and try and see if they can run around them. Not the South African. The South African's going to run right over you. That's just because of our size. So what we did is we had a very boring game and it involved a lot of kicking, and we used our forwards, and we can talk about this in a next episode, how we use the forwards and how we use the bench. And because our forwards are normally so dominant, we like to scrum and we like to keep the ball with the forwards. We don't want to pass it to the back line if we don't have to, because our forwards are so dominant. So what we would do, the forwards would work, they would get the ball, they would give it to number 9 or 10, and they would kick the ball, and then we would chase. And then when they got the ball, our forwards would be there, and they would have to fight against our forwards. So people were just saying, that's all South Africa does. They dominate, their strength, their power. It's so boring. You know exactly when you run onto the field, what South Africa's game plan is going to be, what they're going to do, and there's nothing else that they can do because they don't have the speed, they don't have the agility, they don't have the backs. All they want to do is kill you with their power. In 2019, when we won the World Cup, that worked for us up until that stage. But as you say, people said they've got to do something else because people are now working out ways to try and counteract what South Africa is doing. And here you have the brilliance of Rassie Erasmus and the previous coach, Jacques Nienaber, who came in and they changed the game. And in 2019, we just had power and we just dominated at front. We didn't have the backs. And when Rassie came in, he changed the game. He started getting backs that can run. It's not necessarily the biggest guys. If you look at our 2 wings now, they are tiny. They are 5 foot something, but best in the world with just sidestepping and running. And Cheslin Colby, small little colored guy from the Cape, but man, he's our player now. So we have still got the dominance of the Springbok forwards. We still kill in the scrums and the lineouts, but added to that is currently a back line that can pass the ball and run. And what Rassie has done is after 2019, he went to New Zealand and he got a fly half, Tony Brown, who used to play for the All Blacks. But he coached in New Zealand. He was asked to be coach for the All Blacks, but he turned that down. He was coaching in Japan. And Rassie went to him and said, listen, I want to change the Springboks tactics so that they can be an attacking backline. So he asked him if he would be willing to come and help coach, be an assistant coach, and he accepted. So you can even see our game now is running. In the back line, we're running. There's a name for it. It's called Tony Ball because his name is Tony. So we don't play the same way we used to. We play Tony ball. We run the ball and we try and not just run over you. We also try and run around you and do things like that. So the commentators were correct. We were very predictable. Everyone knew what South Africa was going to do, but they couldn't handle the power. So they still lost. But Rassie went ahead and changed what we do. So now we're playing a different kind of rugby. And currently it's been working well for us.
Wow, that's amazing. And the current coach from South Africa is they call him Rossi. That's his first name. So
Yeah.
most people refer to him as Rossi. Um, you know, from what I could tell, many people consider him the best coach in rugby right now.
Right, correct.
Okay. And I could see that the man is brilliant. And again, you have to watch the series to see how Rossi motivates his men and also the brilliance of his strategy. So not only is he great at motivating, he's great at creating game plans. And you will see that throughout the series. And that's one of the things that caught my eye is, wow, this guy is rough. He doesn't beat around the bush. He'll
Right.
he'll say what's on his mind and tell you to your face what needs to be said.
Right.
But it's one thing to be that way, but you can also tell that he loves his players and he respects them and being tough with them, but also loving them. You could tell Rassi does both.
Right. And one amazing thing about him is he played for the Springboks.
Mm-hmm.
He was the Springbok captain. So he's not walking into a change room where he doesn't know how the boys feel. He's not walking into a change room where he read things in a book. He's walking into a change room that he knows how the guys feel, how they need to be motivated, how do you get them to play their best. And he's been there, he's done it, and now he's just taken it to another level. So that's one thing about him, is that he himself has been a Springbok captain, had that pressure, had all of that weight on his shoulders, and now he knows how to help other people, how to deal with that.
Yeah, it truly comes out in this series. So with that, Tribe, we're going to end this episode, and we're going to continue to talk about the series over the next couple of episodes or more, depending on where it leads us. But what an amazing episode, Rifle. Thank you for sharing your story.
Oh, very welcome.
Thank you for sharing the sport of rugby, with me. I don't regret taking this journey with you and learning about the game of rugby. So what another amazing episode. And I'm looking forward to continue to talk about this series and just to learn more. So again, thank you, Rifle.
Very welcome.
Until next time, Tribe. And again, rugbypass.tv. Create a free account and you won't regret it. Watch the series Chasing the Sun 2. So with that, Tribe, once again, thank you for listening, and until next time. Thanks again.
Cheers, everybody. Thank you.
Thank you for watching this episode of Rugby with Rifle. Remember to press the like button and subscribe to the channel if you haven't yet to support this podcast.